Well, Ian Dickson, thanks for being one of our rock stars. As anybody knows who's seen these before, the Rockstar interviews only happen by invitation only from a lead agency. Nobody reaches out to us to ask to be one of our rock stars. These are people that we absolutely trust to help ourselves and other contacts that we have. So there's no affiliate, no commission, no nothing back and forth from Ian and I. We just trust Ian. So Ian, first of all, thanks for being trustworthy and a legit human in this amazing community.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I just found out that this existed a little bit ago. So it's super cool to be a part of it. Thank you.
It's super
It's
fun to
great.
have you, man. Couldn't ask for a better one. So I know you do so much cool ecom stuff and you totally get branding and totally get ads, totally get how to build funnels and all that space. Bottom line is, before you dive into kind of how that works, I don't want you to get too in the nuts and bolts. I want people to reach out and actually connect if they have a need for you. But I do want you to introduce yourself, where you're from. Just give us an idea of who you serve, what you do.
Sure. So, first and foremost, I'm an athlete by trade. So ecom and entrepreneurship in general is kind of like a second second career path. I grew up playing baseball with the dream of playing Major League Baseball. And to shorten the story, got drafted in 2011 by the Chicago Cubs, traded to the Washington Nationals in 2013, ended up getting injured, rehabbing, released in 2016, and then punted out into the real world of oh my gosh, I didn't have a backup plan. I literally, for the longest time in my life, thought a backup plan was a weakness. I refused to think of what I was doing after baseball. And at that point, I'm embracing my athlete identity because now my hair is growing back out. At that point, my hair was down to my shoulders. The day after I got released, I shave it all off, and I'm done with baseball. I'm moving forward. Ended up going into sales, figured that game out, and was like, okay, cool. I want to get more leverage on this. Let me learn how to sell online. Stumbled into digital marketing, and then my family had an e-commerce brand, and I was like, oh, let me use all the fun stuff that I'm doing to blow this up, and had some great success there. And then as a byproduct of just people asking how did you do that, I kind of fell into some done for you coaching, and that's how we got to present day.
Man, that's super cool because number one, this whole backup plan thing, I've heard that before in professional athletes. That's a kind of a mental game. It's an outlet, right? You can give yourself the back door, but you need to push harder and stay in it, right? And by the way, entrepreneurs kind of do that too sometimes. We're like, oh, screw it, I'm all in, I'm burning the ships. But no, you got to be smart and actually know what you're doing and have different paths you can take.
Wow, that's super insightful of okay, cool, let me not repeat that. Because I look back on it with perspective now and be like, no, I know how I felt in the moment, but it was absolutely wrong. I could have done both. It wouldn't have compromised my mental space. I just I wasn't mature enough to appreciate that yet. So if I thought of it, it felt like it was weakness.
I
When
know.
in reality, it's not.
Same here, man. I used to do the same thing. And now I've learned that I kind of picture myself as an entrepreneur in a hallway with lots of doors coming off the hallway. And my game as an entrepreneur is to not deadbolt any of the doors. I might not be able to explore all of them right away. Take them one at a time, but don't, keep the options open. So anyway, cool.
To go with that metaphor, I think it's important to at least just know which direction down the hallway to walk.
Yeah.
That's it. Because if you walk the wrong direction, then you have to turn around. It's a lot farther.
It's expensive to turn around.
Yes.
So that's a great segue into who do you serve and what do you do? Because I've sent so many people over to Ian already and he's helped them and they call me back and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, Ian's crushing it. He got his results and you know how to get down the hallway. So who do you help? What do you do?
Sure. I'll give you criteria of what I look for from an investment standpoint, brands that I want to work with, because I have a lot of confidence that they're the most leveraged to get results, even if they don't believe they are. So number one, I look to sell consumable products. So physical products that are consumable in nature. And when I say consumable, I don't mean digestible consumable. I mean repeat purchase products.
Yeah.
Two, a company that has scalable infrastructure that can double, triple in a 90-day cycle. Just because I've broken a few businesses, maybe 3 or 4, where we sell too much too fast, go from not being able to sell enough to can't handle the logistical fulfillment of what we're selling, which is a fun problem. But looking for the ability to 2 or 3x in 90 days. Proof of demand. So looking for companies that are already selling in some channel, doesn't have to be online. I've found some people who only sell at trade shows, but the key here is proof of demand in the market, and they already know their message. So a lot of the people, when I meet them, they don't think they know their message. But then when you get down to it, I'm like, you could sell a person one-to-one, right? Like, you know how to do that? Yes, that's what we're looking for. What's consumable? Oh, and somebody who has a reason why they're selling what they're selling, like a unique, like ideally a story, like not oh, I'm a drop shipper and I saw this opportunity in the market, or I tested 1,000 products and this one was profitable at first. Like, I have a real reason why I do what I do. That's what I seek out. So those 4.
Got it. So somebody's really connected in their heart to what they're selling and who they're selling to.
Yeah. Yes. Ideally, that's perfect. Like, I have in the mastermind we're running now, like, we have people who couldn't see life any other way because their life events foster them into this spot of like, this is the logical next step, is you sell this solution because they've lived through the problem and they created the solution for themselves and then started a brand off of it. That's amazing, simply because you can't replicate it. Like, in the e-com physical product space, you could take any physical product, send it to a manufacturer and have an identical one, 3 weeks later, but you can't copy the story. The story, you mentioned like branding. The story and the identity of the brand is the most valuable asset that a brand owns, because nobody else can replicate it. For example, my family's been in business in their e-com supplements brand since 2001. Family owned and operated since 2001. Okay, cool. Anybody could take our product. This is not our product. This is seltzer, but I'm just using it as a visual. Could take our product and knock it off tomorrow. Yeah. What they can't knock off is the history, the reason why. Like, our family story goes back to 1985 for the product. So that can't be replicated. And we found that when we lean into that, it just connects and pierces through all the noise in the market and speaks to the why. It speaks to a more empathetic part of the brain rather than like just a, hey, here's a product for some money, go buy this. And it draws real connection with people, and people are craving that and looking for that. So that's what I look for in brands that I work with directly or teach, because that's been the pattern. Like, that's where I got started, and that's the pattern that's popped up of like, whoa, this continues to work. And ideally, brands that have hired, I feel terrible saying this sometimes, but brands that have hired a lot of other agencies and consultants and spent a lot of money and not gotten results, because that was me. I cycled through 5, 6, 7 different agencies. And the only reason that I know what I know now is by having to solve why didn't they get it right? Like, what were they missing over and over and over again, and piecing that together. So yeah. That's it.
That's great. No, that really is great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So e-com brands who are really understanding their product, they know the heart connection to it. They're already showing profitability. They know how to scale, and they're already able to sell in some place, some market. They're already showing they have real numbers, real data.
Yeah. And can I share a little bit more as to why?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I routinely find, and this is not a knock on anybody, I think it's important. It's an important raise of awareness to anybody who's watching this. I routinely find that brands don't know their numbers, or they think they know their numbers and they don't. So to me, it always comes down to 3 things. There's only 3 problems to fix. It's math, messaging, or belief. If you have the math and messaging right, the only thing stopping you is belief. But most often, like I'll give you a crazy story. I'll give you a couple, but I'll start with one. I had somebody that I was doing some one-on-one coaching with, and they had a converting funnel. They had paid into coaching programs. They had, paid other agencies. Their funnel was converting around 3%. And I'm sorry for the techno babble, but they were having like a 3.5 return on ad spend. And they go and ask, is this a good return on ad spend? Everybody would say, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And at the end of each month, their P&L would show that they were not improving their profits. They were losing money. And I've been there because I used to pay other agencies who would tell me, oh my gosh, look at all the revenue we're getting for you. And I'd look at my P&L and go, that's cool, but I'm losing money because I'm spending more on ads and I'm paying you. And yes, my sales went up, but not enough to cover the expenses. And I can't actually tell if I'm getting new customers or the same ones and just paying more for them. So we dive in, we look at what I think is the most important metric when it comes to customer acquisition of break-even return on ad spend. Because here's the thing, in info, you don't have a cost model, payment processor, maybe some overhead to whether it's a mastermind or a course, but there's no hard cost to the good. In an e-com, there is, and it's different for every good that's being sold. So they didn't know what their break-even return on ad spend was. So they're getting a 3.3, and nobody's ever brought this up to them. We put it through a calculator, come to find their break-even's a 5.5. So every dollar they spent, they're lighting money on fire. Made a couple little tweaks, like just a couple tweaks to the offer, little price increase here and there, got their break-even down to a 1.9. Their return on ad spend went down. It went from a 3.3 to a 2.75, but they were able to scale that 2.75 and bring in an additional $100K a month in revenue for the next 3 months after like a 4-day like tweak. It was insane. So
Wow.
math is huge.
Yeah.
Most brands don't know their numbers, and sometimes it's just, let's tweak this lever here and then keep doing what you're doing, and now it's actually profitable. And then once it's profitable, you can scale. So
okay, for anybody who's in ecom and doesn't know what Ian just said, that's a reason to call Ian. There we go.
Yes, and for anybody who did hear that and didn't follow or track all that, don't feel like bad or guilty. Most people I talk to, if not all, don't know it that tightly, which is sad and awesome. It's just the truth. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's good that you're now becoming aware to it, because now you can fix it. And shame on all the other agencies that have let you down in the past, because I've been there.
You know, it's really true. And I know I'm excited to talk to Ian and have him in our Rockstar Rolodex here, but I think the real takeaway that I get from hanging out with Ian is that if you're doing business in the space that he's an expert in, and this has been true in my life, I'm not an ecom guy, but I've leaned in on experts like Ian in areas that I needed to grow in. And unfortunately, I've learned that if you spend a decade trying to figure it out yourself, you will never get as good as fast as if you just spend 3 months with somebody who's already an expert. Just skip the whole decade of education and get the answers and move on.
I have another quick anecdote. Yeah. So another like one of my offers is a VIP session, which is like a 1-day deep dive for brands that are typically, like, if I do a sales call and identify like, whoa, there is a little lever to pull on, like, let's go deep on that. I did one recently with a brand that went from $2,000 a month to like $250K a month in a 6-month stretch.
Oh my gosh.
And how did that happen? They got above their break-even return on ad spend and increased spend. They just bought more sales. That was it. But in the process, they didn't have some of the, I'll say, like, core ecom principles in mind. And they scaled so fast that some of their infrastructure wasn't designed to hold it. So we sat down for a day, gave them a deliverable, like a single-page document, and was literally probably 25 bullet points, and told them, look, if you do any one of these, you'll make your money back in 10 days. They texted me 3 days later. They said, we did the first bullet. We made our money back in 3 days. They texted me on the 6th day. They said, we have 100% return on the investment for the session. And since then, I think it's only been like 16 days. I think they turned like 3K into 30 net, like 30 net. Yeah. Like big differences.
That's huge.
That's why ecom's been so fun for me, because there's some little things that we can pull on and tweak and open the whole game up. So
you can blow it up overnight, almost literally. Yeah.
Fast. Yes. And that's sometimes literally.
That's like,
yeah,
really cool. Okay, so you do 1-day strategy sessions. You do some done-for-you service. What kind of services do you offer to folks in the econ world?
So I'm moving out of the like done-for-you retainer model, and I have a mastermind that we run. And to be totally transparent, the purpose of that mastermind is to find brands to partner with. So it's kind of like an incubator. I don't market it as an incubator, I market it as a mastermind, but I'm doing it intentionally to find brands that meet that criteria, only letting brands in that meet that criteria, which is fun because it fosters an environment where everybody's super, like, they all know each other already. It's like, it's really bizarre and wild to watch. So we have the VIP, we have the mastermind, we have courses, and then the done for you pieces, I don't want to say exclusive, but here's the truth of it. Now, like, doing it for our own brand and knowing what it's worth from a valuation standpoint, there isn't a model that's retainer based that makes sense, because if I go charge somebody $5 or $10 a month and it doesn't work, they're terrified and pissed. And if I charge them $5 to $10 a month and it does work, I'm terrified and pissed. It makes no sense. I can't figure out a way for that. So it's all performance based, and it's only the right opportunities where it's like, hey, we can make a lot together fast. That's where we look at done for you. But
I love that model.
Does that help answer that?
It's a good partnership. Yeah, that totally helps. All right, so here's what I'm going to do then, Ian. This is so fun. Links change all the time, and where to find you change all the time. So let's not even go there in a recording. We're going to drop them down here, up there, or side by side, wherever we end up finding the location for this video. That way you can kind of keep us up to date on how to reach out and get in touch. And just so you know, if you're watching this and you're 2 days after we record it or 2 years after we record it, reach out to Ian sure, maybe the coaching structure's changed a little bit, but ultimately Ian is so in the middle of this on his own ecom sites and all the people he gets to coach. It's hard to find somebody who's seeing more and doing more and more active in all the genres of this than Ian. So just, I mean, even a 30-minute phone call would be, if he does that kind of thing at that point, would be totally worth it.
And assuming that, I'm guessing that the only people watching this are ecom brand owners, or maybe you're in an agency running ecom. If you're an ecom brand owner, here's my guidance, whether or not we ever talk. I think this will be phenomenally helpful. If you're going to buy instead of build, meaning you're going to pay somebody else instead of figure it out for yourself, pay somebody who had to figure it out for themselves first. Because in my experience, especially in ecom, I don't like the logistics operations side. I'm not fond of it. But in the dropshipping environment, the people who are really good at this stuff do it for themselves. And I do have a beef with some agency models. I don't want to go I don't want to throw too many stones. But if you're hiring, look for somebody who's solved the problem for themselves, who's had the right incentives to figure it out. Or if you're more of the mind of, I'm going to do the hard work and figure it out myself, go ahead and do that. And then you can pay a lot less on the back end to have somebody else execute your process. So I hope that helps, because I've been exactly where you're sitting if you're watching this, and the path is there. You will find it.
The path is there. You'll find it. I was in an interview 2 hours ago for some other show, and that was the final where we left it on as well. Like don't give up on this thing. The path is there, and keep after it. Find the right guide and keep taking steps. That's what it comes down to.
One of the things that I do now that I think I've told you about, I'm not sure, but I'm doing this with almost everybody now, is anybody that I strike some type of deal with, whether it's Mastermind, done for you, VIP, my first ask is, as soon as they say yes, it's cool. As soon as we get off, can you just capture a 1-minute video of how you feel right now? Like what you think about this? Because I get so many people who have healthy skepticism of I've tried this 10 times. I don't think that was my father. My father was like, I've tried this dozens of times, had the business for 20 years. Ian, please go apply your energy to it. But for what it's worth, I've tried this before, and nothing special about me. I'm not saying it that way. It's awesome to see the pattern of yeah, that skepticism warranted. I was there too. I was skeptical about everything that I'm doing now until you do it. There's one thing to read a book and believe it works. It's another thing to have applied it, failed a ton, and then gotten it to a point where it does work, and then do it again and again and again and realize, oh, that's just the course. That's how it's supposed to go. So If you have that skepticism, just keep forging forward, because it is there. This stuff isn't made up or fake. And when you get there, I believe you'll find it's actually simpler than you once thought it was.
Yeah. That's the kind of life, That's good advice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grandpa. Fantastic advice.
I love patterns, man. I love patterns. They geek me out. So I literally just I have an iPad that I just whiteboard a notability of just connecting the dots. It's my favorite thing to do.
I love it, dude. You're brilliant at it, obviously. And hey, it's making money for you and so many other people. So keep connecting the dots. Please don't stop. All right, Ian, we're going to drop your contact info around here. And man, thanks again. Thanks again for being one of our
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's
I'm glad we got this
my
together.
privilege. All right. Talk soon, bud.
Thanks, man.